I'm George Curtis. Welcome to It's Your Law. Each week it's my privilege to bring guests that make us think. They often make me think. Sometimes I agree with them, sometimes I don't, but I always learn something. And from your calls and cat calls, I understand that you learn something now and then too. We like to bring people who make the law, enforce the law, or have something to do with what our laws are supposed to accomplish as social engineering. And we hear mostly from people who are disappointed. Sometimes we have people who really know why they're disappointed and are making some efforts to change things. Today's guest is an author. She's also been a legislator, and she's currently a candidate for the Congress, and her name is Terri McCormick. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, George. I'm delighted to be back.
Well, it was fun to have you before. I've seen you with different hats, and it was exciting when I found out that you were writing a book. I was very, very curious. So curious I bought the book. And I must confess I haven't had a chance to read all of it, but I probably read 2/3 of it, and it's given me more questions than anything else. But first of all, for people who haven't seen you recently in the public life, let's hear a little bit about Terri McCormick and what got her here. I remember 6 years in the legislature, wasn't it?
Exactly. I self-term limited. I told the people that I would be there for 3 terms in public office and kept my word to leave the State House. I believe we'll have a lot more representation of the people if we did honor term limits. I'm an advocate, and if elected to the United States Congress, I would certainly push that piece of knowledge forward. I don't believe we'll get a bill passed to that effect, but I think we would need to take a look at how we would pull that forward.
And even before Terri McCormick, the politician, you're a real person with a real life, a real family. You're educated, I think, a bachelor's and a master's degree. Was education your field?
I began in international foreign policy, actually, with a political science degree, and then taught at the University of Windsor and did pretty extensive research in the Great Lakes with the Great Lakes Commission at the University of Windsor. And thought I was headed to be a policy wonk, a researcher in the United Nations somewhere, in the diplomacy corps, but life was calling me to raise a family and move back to the state of Wisconsin where I'd grown up and raised my children here. They're all grown, they're all established. Ken and I together have 5 grown, you can't call them children anymore, but we do. And we even have a lawyer in the family, a banker. Kelly just graduated from medical college and is doing a residency in Michigan. Chris graduated from the Medill School of Journalism. You got Mom talking here now. She's doing very, very well in corporate communications. And our youngest will be graduating from St. Norbert this year, and we're very proud of all 5 of them.
Well, it certainly is an accomplished and a well-rounded family background, and obviously the parents got some influence on the kids. And I read in one segment of your book that your background is Irish farmers from Minnesota.
Absolutely. Very determined Scotch-Irish background. My father's dad and his grandfather started the McCormick hay rake manufacturing businesses in both Chicago and Minneapolis. And yes, there's always a connection if your last name is McCormick and you're a manufacturer in the early 1900s. So yes, we are connected. And I still communicate with cousins out in Oregon that are running the McCormick fields, where the hardwood timber is that they use to make the paper for the Tribune. So there is that connection. My mother's family was very established in farming after the Civil War. They were given land, as they soldiers were, if you're part of the Union, and established themselves as early pioneers and leaders in their community. So I have a long tradition of serving my neighbors through my heritage.
But then, of course, there's a little bit of bucking of tradition in the conservative areas where we are, because you jumped in both feet as a female in politics, and let's be realistic, there still is some resistance about having women pass laws that must be obeyed by us males. Isn't there?
Well, it's an interesting paradigm. I've been reading research on the resistance of some women against women too. So I don't think it's a gender on gender. I think we all need to really earn our place in life, whether or not we wear skirts some of the time or we don't. And I believe I learned that lesson best from my grandmother, who is always remained close to me, my grandma Jessie Boyle, who went to business college with Charles Lindbergh and was the head of her Grange in Minnesota. A very determined first generation Irish American, and she'd often tell me to stay humble in her brogue and keep my head down and to never complain, or you'd never be able to pick yourself up when you get knocked down and expect it.
Well, then you got into politics, and I'm sure that there was some background work and much study before you became a candidate. You seem to, according to the book, have no difficulty in knowing that the Republican Party would be the party of your choice. But then when you got to Madison and saw how sausage was being made, you didn't seem too sure there was a difference. And you weren't too sure that anybody should be forced to eat the sausage. So let's take our first break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some of those experiences of Terri McCormick in Madison. All right?
Thank you, yes.
We'll be right back.